Hey, I'm going to capture some animation process stuff. What I'm looking at now is adding another hero weapon. So this is my initial sketch. For the battle axe, that's all I've got at this point. Just a idle sketch. I think I'll go with the smaller one, not the bigger one. I remember when I first drew this, I was undecided, and I'm still exactly as undecided. I'll start with the small one anyway. All right. So this is where I start. I always make a kind of horizontally wide image so that I can just start doodling out a whole lot of different frames, but that I can kind of have them all sitting next to my original frame just for reference, and I think that helps keep the kind of size and mass consistent. If you can always look back to the original frame and make sure your guy isn't getting taller or shorter on subsequent frames. So this is the first part where I will just lay out potentially the important keyframes. So we'll start by making a copy of my other frame, so it's just a little less work than drawing it from scratch every time. We'll get rid of the things that are definitely going to be different. Alright, so yeah, usually I take off the arms, so this frame will want him to be kind of lifting up the axe behind him in order to then strike down. So we'll just start. I think he'll be more kind of back. He'll definitely will have wanted to lift up a bit. I think potentially his pelvis will be more forwards, and I'll get rid of a little bit of this. Maybe I might want him sort of twisting that a little, I'm not quite sure. For the axe, I'll just copy that. Now, I'll figure out just how I, so this is just I do it from a copy just to keep the rough size of the original one, and then also draw over it to make it work better. So I've got this in roughly the position I'm going to want it, and I'm just wobbling it around and eyeballing it to see how I think it's going to look the best. I think something maybe like that. Now this can be foreshortened a bit, I think, to a little. So its arms would be something like, yeah, I think it probably is back a bit too far. I think I need to twist his body a little so that that arm is kind of further forwards. Yeah, that's not bad. I feel like maybe his head wants to be down a bit lower. Keep it up. We'll try it actually the opposite. Yeah, maybe I like that. So now, so I've got that pose. I think it's kind of okay. You know, it's basically he's raised the axe back, but I always like to take another copy of that and just see if I can push that further. But if I just keep editing that first one, then I'll be too concerned that I'll lose something that I liked in that original pose. So it kind of frees me up a lot to make a copy of that, so that I'm just editing the copy and I'm always referring back to, is this actually an improvement on the original pose, or am I just changing, you know, am I just changing things for the sake of changing them? Yeah, see, this looks like what I had in my head is not really, it's not really coming out that well. Yep, screw that. Try again. I mean, I think it's definitely worth spending as much time as you can exploring for these poses, because these poses are what you're going to see, these key poses. All the in-between stuff kind of doesn't matter, you know. You can, I mean, in the way that I like to animate anyway, all the in-between stuff is kind of more suggested and just done in a super cartoony, stylized kind of way, where you know, I don't really show things animating so much. I just show these key poses and do things to suggest the movement that happens between. That's kind of a cheat, but it's also, I just think it looks better. I mean, it's super stylized. I wouldn't, you know, if I was trying to do something realistic, I obviously wouldn't be doing that. But yeah, I don't really want to do anything realistic. Yeah, so I'm kind of following my instincts on this, and just my instincts keep on telling me to like try and bend him back more, but you know, both times I've done it now, I end up with almost the exact same thing, and so I'm kind of starting to, you know, get the notion that probably that instinct isn't actually going to lead me into a kind of better pose that's kind of pushed further. It's just leading me back to that same place. But I do want to try tucking his head in like this. Is that better? And then where is he? So I do want him to be... I feel like he probably should be a pixel higher when he's got this raised, although he could potentially be the same height and just go the pixel higher on the transition. I want to see if I can get this further back. Yeah, maybe that is a little better. And so if I'm sort of still undecided at this stage, I'll keep both of those keyframes, and when it gets time to animate it, I'll just try them both. So yeah, well, one of those will be okay for this pose. I mean, it's always important to keep track of the footwork. So I'm making sure that, so here, this back foot is actually this front foot, and so he's got some forwards movement here, where he's moved that foot all the way back here, and then this behind foot kind of comes up as he twists his body over. And keeping that in mind for the next one is important, figuring out, just trying to make it so that this whole swing he's going to do will feel like a good, satisfying step. Although if you find a keyframe that you just think is awesome, but it doesn't really fit with some logical progression of kind of foot stepping, you can usually find a way to just fudge it to make it look okay, even though he maybe does a tiny little skip or does something dodgy with his legs that, you know, you can easily skim over that. Alright. So this is going to be him with his head down, having done that big strike. I wonder if I sometimes do frames for him where he kind of has his hair down, so he's nah, they just come out a little strange for this. All right. I think be down a little lower. Yeah, I think so. That looks right. Okay, now I'm probably doing something pretty stupid here. This is one of the things I am, on principle, tending to avoid on crawl because of the limitations of the art, trying to get 360-degree kind of range on all the attacks in a thing that's just 2D with sprites flipping left and right. It just has this one limitation of attacks that strike down directly in front, as opposed to swiping across. They're not really particularly compatible with the system. So I probably should avoid them, but I have a bit of a idea in my head of something to maybe try and get this one to work. So yeah, I don't know, maybe there's a good chance it won't work, but just trying to find the right arms for this pose where I guess this is not quite right. I feel like this actually wants to be lower to have his arms kind of coming more down like that. Maybe even straight. Now, there's another variation I want to try because this back leg is kind of hidden. I want to maybe try swapping around the way the legs are, although so they're extended the other way, but no, I think he needs to be pushing forwards at that point. So that's another thing. I'll try on this pose. just to get this further ahead, it's just this isn't too compatible with the way I'm gonna set this up in game. I fear having it sticking so far out in front. The game really wants it treated like it's on 3/4 angle, so something is going in front of the character. It's not sticking right out to the right, it's kind of 50% out the right and 50% down, but I can't, there are reasons why I can't put it far down as well, so but yeah, I mean, maybe that is a bit better. Yeah, so these poses might well get changed a bit in when I'm actually animating it, so this is really just to have a good starting point. Yeah, maybe that is more axy. I'm a little concerned about how far out in front this is coming for when I get to implementation, but I think that is the correct pose. And I'll just now test pushing him. And now I'm going back and checking it against the original pose to see if I think that maybe he's managed to maintain the same mass, or if I've kind of squished him a bit and he's become kind of smaller. And so I'll just try this to get him to have a bit more mass again. I'm just going to try pushing his head down even a little further. I think we're all right with that. Okay, the video seemed to work, so I'll continue. Yeah, I made myself a tea as well. So I think I might still play with this a little bit more. It still feels a little weak. Thinking if I pull those feet back so he's really extending himself more, and I feel like I want his back to be maybe that's a chance to not have that leg be so hidden by the axe. I feel like I want his back to be less kind of curved, but I don't think I can really do that without just losing mass from him. Yeah, I think I'll I don't want him to get completely horizontal. It looks fine in here, but when it comes into the game, it doesn't work, because he's not. It works when he's attacking directly to the right, but it when he's attacking straight down, it just kills everything. But I am starting to be aware that this might just be one of those attacks where I have to do a few directional variants on it. But because this is a whole new weapon type, this is all very kind of experimental, and I'm willing to just fiddle around and see what ends up working for it. I haven't 100% decided how it's going to work. It's all going to be based on prototyping and just what feels right. Yeah, well, that definitely feels a bit better. I'm not sure about that. Yeah. Wonder if this leg's gonna be wider like that. It does. Yeah, that's good. All right. Actually, I'm happy with that. Yeah, there was something about his legs that was weak before, but I think that's a lot nicer. All right. So now always, it's a very good habit to get into, or a very bad habit to not be in, maybe, to forget that at the end of animations, characters go back to their idle pose. So, you know, a lot of the time in Crawl, I actually don't need to animate them going back to their idle pose, but it's just a good thing to keep in mind that, like, you know, there is one final pose at the end which is back to idle, and if you need frames for it to do that, very often people kind of ignore that part. But all right, so I mean, this is a really simple attack, but with the axe, I'm not planning on doing a big fancy combo or anything. It's just going to be a kind of single strike that's really slow and heavy and harder to hit with, but does a lot of damage if you hit with it. So yeah, this is not one of my normal weapon combos where there's a whole lot of different attacks and they're all flowing between each other. This is just a single big powerful strike. So super easy. That's why I thought it was a good starting point, because it'd be a really quick, simple video, but show all the basic principles. So I'll save that, then save into a different file to start animating. Now, already by the time I've viewed this quite a bit, I already hate this guy. I just don't like his look, so I'm happy with this next guy. So we'll just load these up. Just putting the center of mass roughly in the same place for each of these. Maybe he's actually a bit back. Yeah. That doesn't really need a separate frame just now. Alright, so now I'll start using the timeline to just put these onto their own frames. Alright, so now I've just got to do a quick bit of messing about to make sure he's centered properly. Here we go. I'm just trying to figure out if I've actually shifted this guy from the usual center point on these scenes. That's my Sorry, this is a kind of silly and messy way of doing it, but just to make sure he's centered, he ends up centered in a way that's lined up with my with all the other animations, so that when it flicks to this animation, he doesn't snap to the left 1 pixel or anything. Sorry, when I go off and do that, I'm just looking at my messenger. Alright. So this is a pretty good example because it's pretty much the simplest attack animation you're ever going to see. But usually I want to get the attack out really quickly, so I'd have minimum frames between here and here once the attack has been done. But this one I'm actually doing the opposite. The axe I want to be heavy, and so I want to have a long wind up before the strike. So we'll see. So now I'll just put some preliminary times in these. So because this skips his head at the same height, it means to lift that axe, I feel like you want to move your body vertically. So I definitely want some of the in-between frames to go probably down and then up. So he's kind of goes down a frame to kind of grasp the weight of the axe, and then as he actually lifts it, he sort of comes up a frame as his leg passes under the very bottom of his body. Sorry, up a pixel for 1 frame. Yeah, so that's really all I've got in mind at the moment. But so I'll start with my simple variant of this, and have him go down a frame, down a pixel, sorry. And this will also be him just starting to turn the axe. It'll also be his forwards movement beginning just a little bit. And tilting, yeah, that kind of stuff is a little awkward with the pixels, but so the axe. So I'll go back to this one and I'll actually draw my axe kind of on top of this frame. I guess that's sort of how I'm imagining it. I'm imagining it kind of foreshortened, maybe. Can be hard to figure out a way to show this, but kind of because this is a moving through frame, it's actually not, it's not very important that the details look amazing. It's just that the shape of the movement, the shape of the arcs that it's moving through, it's important that those are right. Okay, so he's getting that elbow up. Now this kind of ghosting effect here, where you kind of you end up with a pixel, even though his arm is moving, a lot of the pixels are on the exact same pixels they were on the previous frame. that's one of your, I guess, big enemies with this, with such low resolution stuff. So even though his arm position is maybe a little less, I guess, comfortable with the arm out there, to sort of stop it from ghosting the pixels from the previous frame and kind of ruining the movement, I've just pushed it out a little bit so you can see that it's moving a lot better. And I think this arm, yeah, is still staying down there. All right. So I might even want to pop his head down a bit lower, like, oops, like this. So he's really kind of squatting down a bit to pick it up. But yeah, I'll do a final decision on that in a second once I've got the next frame. Okay, so the next frame is going to be he's partway through picking it up, but he hasn't come this far yet. So he's actually going to be higher up, and the axe is not going to be all the way. Okay, so this is where his head definitely needs to be up, and I'd say probably the forwards as well. All right, now this leg isn't as and neither is. So sometimes when I need to show two legs overlapping like this, I'll just keep the back leg be the full dark red just for that frame, and make the front leg the orange, just so that you can clearly see which one's supposed to be in front just for that frame. It's a one of about 2 million kind of silly, messy things that I do, but you know, whatever. It's more important to me that you read the animation than all the other stuff, really. Now. Okay. So I'm giving him a little bit of back bend and sort of twisting him a little bit, but not quite as much. And so the axe I want to be, I guess, a lot of the way there, but I want most of the remaining movement of the axe to be in tilt of the blade down rather than in kind of moving its position, which kind of makes it feel a bit heavier, hopefully. Alright. So this frame was very important in making it feel heavy. I don't feel like I've done the best job. I feel like maybe I actually want to have this kind of body arch flipping the other way. Maybe that's all it needs. It's not. I feel like I actually want his head down, which is the opposite of what I was going for here. But you've just got to trust your instincts and at least try the things. Yeah, see, I don't want to have his head ghosting like that. I think I do like it, yeah, up higher. I think that instinct was. We'll try this, giving it more down. Yeah, I think that's alright. So, this frame, from here to there, is an alright distance, but I'd like to just cushion into this frame a little bit more because I'm sort of freezing there. I'd like to just smooth off the very edge of that freeze frame by having a frame that's almost there but just not quite. So what I want to do for this is kind of still just kind of unrotate that axe a little. It obviously gets pretty messy with the pixels. That one's a little messy, but So I'm just in here, I'm just making the decision that instead of making this closer one not quite as extreme, I'm actually pushing the next frame to be just a teensy bit more extreme. Now this is something that probably, to make it heavier, I can kind of labor this kind of squatting down to swing the weight around frame a little more. So once I've done a little more work, I might go back and just add an extra frame there as well. But basically, this thing of picking it up, I'm happy with. But yeah, I think I'm probably skipping a lot here. Which is fine, that's what I always like to do, but I can probably put a bit more feeling of weight in there with another frame or two. Anyway, so I'll do another frame now where he is just starting to move. So this one was just cushioning into this pose, where he's just a millimeter away from being in that pose. And now I'm going to do the opposite, where he's just starting to move out of that pose into this next one where he's slamming down. So I guess his body is going to start moving down. His leg, his foot is his legs are definitely going to start moving. And then the axe is going to trail behind a little bit, but just be pulled a millimeter towards the slam down to kind of try and get the feel that the axe is a little heavy and it's being kind of pulled behind the body. So I think the main thing will be to start him moving, but his head maybe, no, his head can't, his head trails behind a little. He might even go one more pixel. Yeah, I think that's gonna work. Alright, this is all becoming a bit of a mess. I think I can. So he's coming down a little bit, and this, you see he's jerking the top of his body forwards, but his head is lagging behind a little bit. And then this axe, I can actually use this, considering I already fiddled around and made this fairly wonky axe that's just a millimeter from that other pose. I can probably use that as a good starting point. Delete the one behind it. Yeah, that's probably pretty good. I think I'll lift that one up more. No, I think he wants to, yeah, twist that elbow around here. So, all right. So that's actually almost enough. So you see, one of the main things I do here is I want to go from here to here. Instead of drawing one halfway between these two that would kill the intensity of that movement, I just draw one a tiny bit forwards of that to show you, okay, we're moving in this direction, and then suddenly snap all the way down there. And that's why that kind of feels like a really strong hit the second he hits that point, because I haven't actually slowly knocked you through those positions frame by frame. I've just shown, oh, he's moving in that direction, and then shown a big result. And so, yeah, that's one of my favorite things about animation, I guess, is this really stylized way of doing things where you just kind of, it just feels so snappy to zip between positions. And, you know, it's the same style that has a lot of motion blurs and things like that as well, that, you know, you bridge those gaps just with a big smear frame where everything's all stretched out. And yeah, I really like that. So, I mean, that's most of that done. I'm going to make a squish frame for this, and I'll experiment around and see if I want maybe a slight smooth in for this position, but I think probably not. I think what I'm more likely to want is just a squish frame where he actually hits the ground and he kind of squashes down vertically and flattens out a little before returning to idle. And so these squish frames can be pretty messy because you don't really see them for very long. It's just something that you feel more than anything. And so just use the non-uniform scale to squish him. Yep, that's fine. Now the axe has gone out way too far, so I'll bring that in. So I want everything to squish along each object's kind of personal, local kind of horizontal, not the squashing right out. Alright, so now let's try that. Yeah, it's alright. Now that's also the frame where if I was doing a smear, I would draw my kind of start point here, and then I would do something like this. And I wouldn't go all the way back to the start point, but I'd go sort of a chunk of the way, but it's just good to keep the start point in mind. And I'm really just doing it in red just so that I can see it while I'm doing this. And then I'd probably yeah, do that. But I actually think that probably for this one, I won't end up doing using the smear frame. It sort of depends how it goes in implementation. And then do a version of this that has just the final dissipating version of the smear frame. That's a bit of a ugly one. It doesn't have really quite the right curve on it. That's alright. So yeah, like I said, I probably won't use that smear anyway, but maybe I will just take that out for the moment. It's there if I decide I need to use it. Yeah, I just think this feels better without it, and the way this is going to be a positional slam down sort of attack, it's not going to be a swipe based attack. It just might confuse things visually to have that smear in there, and people might think it's a swipe and think that that should be the area that does damage. So now I just want to do a frame animating back to idle. I think it's probably going to actually be pretty similar to this frame, so I can just make a copy of that, use that as my starting point. Now, the axe is the main difference. Axe is probably going to be more like that angle. And I think I actually want this to be a frame where he's actually stepping up above this height a pixel, so that his settling back into idle is a downward thing where he kind of stomps back down instead of a slow rise. I want this to be an up then down. So I'll unsquish his head, and then I'll get the whole thing. Yeah, well, I guess that's pretty much it for that. Like I want that frame going back to idle. That's something that it's just it needs to be super quick, so I'm not going to labor that with extra frames. This bit where he's picking up the axe, because this is going to be a new thing when I put it in game, and I'm going to want potentially for it to be quite slow to pick up, but I'm not sure exactly how slow. I'm going to add a few extra frames here that in implementation I might end up not using, but just so that I don't stick it in and realize I need more frames later, I'll just add the frames now, so that this will facilitate potentially the slowest pickup I'm gonna want in game, but I can easily just cut those frames. So yeah, I'll do a teensy bit more on this now. Alright, so it really is. I do want this to be pretty close to that previous frame still, so he's kind of squatting down and just kind of struggling to turn the axe. Yeah, I do foresee some issues with this actually, but we'll see. His legs are still going back. Whoa. Okay. Just want to quickly see this, but actually down further than the previous one. I think I might like that more. It's really kind of getting into it. And I might just do another frame before this one to just be not quite where that one's up to either. So I'm just experimenting a little bit with seeing how he's actually going to spin the axe around, and just my gut tells me he wants to actually flick that over pretty quickly, and so instead of having this halfway between that and that, I want it to be weighted still on this angle, so then that is a kind of sudden flip, but I might be wrong. I think that works all right. All right, cool. So I've got a few extra frames there that if I really need to, I can make this whole pickup really nice and slow, but I probably won't need to, and ideally I wouldn't use those frames. I guess I'm not completely happy with how slow his legs slide behind him. People don't tend to step, so kind of smoothly. Probably, if I do end up using the slower version, I might consider changing that so that instead of this being one really slow step there, there'd actually be a little shuffle step, so it'd be kind of 2 quick steps, just to make that feel a bit more natural. But I'll hold off doing that until I'm actually implementing it and seeing if I need those frames at all. All right. Anyway, that was my first kind of attempt at doing some dev diary behind the scenes kind of animation stuff, and yeah, it seemed to work okay, so I'll try to do more of them in the future.